Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Twitter Fail Crisis Management session. Now, this session is not intended to scare you, despite the title. Quite the opposite. What we'll be doing in the next 35 minutes is taking you through a crisis scenario where an organisation has to deal with a situation and at the same time manage a storm of negative online activity, a lot of bad publicity. Hopefully you're going to pick up several useful tips for managing a Twitter storm with the help of our two experts, which we'll shortly introduce. Should you ever find yourself in the firing line, so hopefully there'll be some useful tips to take away. Now, what I'd like to start with is a video. Although it looks as though Jez and Sarah are about to burst into song, I can assure you they won't. The video is going to serve two purposes. One is it's one of probably the best examples of crisis management where somebody has taken a brand and really caused major damage online. And I think the second one is it's quite a cheerful song, and after 4 days at World Travel Market, you'll probably appreciate it.
Flew United Airlines on my way to Nebraska. The plane departed Halifax, connecting in Chicago's O'Hare. While on the ground, a passenger said from the seat behind me, "My God, they're throwing guitars out there." The band and I exchanged a look, best described as terror, at the action on the tarmac, and knowing whose projectiles these would be. So before I left Chicago, I alerted 3 employees who showed complete indifference towards me. United, united, you broke my Taylor guitar. United, united, some big help you are. You've broken, you should fix it. You're liable, just admit it. I should have flown with someone else or gone by car. 'Cause United breaks guitars. When we landed in Nebraska, I confirmed what I suspected. Mike Taylor had been the victim of a vicious act of malice at O'Hare. So began a year-long saga of pass the buck, don't ask me, and I'm sorry, sir, your claim can go nowhere. So do all the airlines people from New York to New Delhi, including kind Miss Earlwig, who says the final word from them is no. I've heard all your excuses, and I've chased your wild gooses, and this attitude of yours, I say, must go. United, united, you broke my Taylor guitar. United, united, some big help you are. You've broken, you should fix it. You're liable, just admit it. I should have flown with someone else or gone by car. 'Cause United breaks guitars. Well, I won't say that I'll never fly with you again, 'cause maybe to save the world I probably would, but that won't likely happen. And if it did, I wouldn't bring my luggage, 'cause you'd just go and break it into 1,000 pieces, just like you broke my heart when United breaks guitars. united. Some big help you are. You've broken, you should fix it. You're liable, just admit it. I should have flown with someone else or gone by car. 'Cause United breaks guitars. Yeah, United breaks guitars. Yeah, United breaks guitars.
Just out of interest, how many people have seen that video before? Okay, so it's quite reflective that it has got such widespread coverage, and I've just put a few figures up here just to show you how well that video did spread. It was posted on the 6th of July in 2009. Within a couple of days it had 137,000 views. A couple of days later it went to 1.7 million. Now this was very much down to the power of Twitter and of blogs. It spread like wildfire across the US. It later came to the UK, and you can see there was another boost in traffic. And at the moment, last time I looked, it had 12.5 million hits. Now, why is it so popular? Obviously, United got a lot of damage from their brand being associated with this guitar breaking incident. Incidentally, I think Dave Carroll has done very well out of it. He's now on the public speaking circuit talking to companies as to how they should manage their online customer service. But there's a few lessons from this. I mean, one thing I think that made this video very, very popular and made it spread virally is not so much that he criticized United or that something terrible happened to him, but actually that it's quite a clever, creative story. He's made that video. It's an amusing video. It's perfect material that people share online. For those of us who spend time on Twitter, something like this lands. You see it on in your timeline. You click a link and you think, oh, I'll share that with my friends. So people then share it with others, and before you know it, something like this happens where millions of people have viewed it. And the other key thing is he didn't do it straight away. He waited a year and gave United a year of opportunities to respond to his situation. Now, I mentioned here as well, it wasn't just you and me and ordinary people sharing on Twitter, but also some of the high-profile online celebrities. When they picked it up, the number of views shot up quite dramatically. So what we want to do today is really take you through a scenario along those lines and get both our experts and you, the audience, to give us some ideas of how we'd respond to this. A couple of brief introductions. My name's Andy Yarosh. I'm a freelance writer. I'll be moderating this session. I used to work in crisis management consultancy, but thankfully before the days of Twitter, so my job was a lot easier then. Sarah Rathbone is Client Services Director at travel and lifestyle agency Siren Communications. She has over 10 years experience working with travel brands, and in that time Sarah has worked as part of teams who have won PR industry awards for successful news management in the face of issues. Jeremy Skidmore has been a journalist for more than 25 years. He was previously editor of Travel Weekly and has written for just about every national newspaper in the UK, as well as appearing on television and radio. He's currently one of the country's leading crisis management trainers, with high-profile clients including Barclays, Hilton Worldwide, P&O Cruises, Teleport and TUI. So we're expecting good answers. Now, just as a brief introduction, Jeremy, if I can start with you. The video there just showed how much the world has changed in the last few years. From your experience, how has social media changed the way that organisations have to deal with crises?
First of all, thank you very much for that biog. Obviously, I wrote it, so there's a little bit of spin there, but it has changed things massively. Obviously, companies need to be a lot quicker in their responses, although I think we all know a few major brands that still have a 9-to-5 mentality with their Twitter account, but they do need to be able to respond very quickly. They need to be very transparent, because if they're saying something different on Twitter than they're saying in other parts of in other releases or statements, they'll quickly get found out. And they also have to speak in a different language often. They have to be more personal. They have to engage with the people who are tweeting about them. Not necessarily in a frivolous way, particularly if there's a major crisis, but certainly in a more personal way. And part of that is because they are having to take notice of and respond to people that, frankly, a generation ago they didn't really need to bother about, because often the lone person or the lone voice would not be heard. But of course now people can be heard, and people a lot of people have huge numbers of followers, so they're having to talk to a different market.
Okay, and Sarah, I mean, looking at how companies respond, we can see, as the consumers, we can see the visible side of their response on Twitter. But what sort of things, from your experience, go on behind the scenes in terms of getting ready to manage a crisis?
One of the best things to do is to try and be as prepared as you can. Most businesses, brands, destinations, there are issues, challenges that crop up again and again. Practice, rehearse, get ready, and have kind of standard responses, processes in place, people who know what their role is in a crisis, including within social media, but not just, so that when it happens, everybody is ready.
And how about, I mean, for large companies such as United, they can have a whole team of people ready. But for people who maybe run a small business, a small hotel, for example, what simple steps could they take?
Have somebody who has responsibility, but maybe consider it being more than just one person in different areas of the business. So if you're a hotel, for example, dealing with people, your guests, somebody in customer services who also looks at your social media can be really handy. They have fantastic insight and intelligence and expertise. Have more than one person responsible. People go on holiday. If you have social media feeds, for it suddenly to go quiet for 2 weeks doesn't look good for your brand. And again, maybe invest in some training. One of the great things about social media, there's a huge amount that's free. Learn, watch what your competitors, what other people do, take on board their learnings.
Okay, thank you. Just a general question to both of you before we start the scenario of, have you got examples of companies who've actually done really good crisis management online?
Yes, there's actually a gentleman at the front mentioned the one that I think is fantastic earlier. It's not a travel brand, but O2. They've had various issues to do with network outage and all sorts, and they handled it fantastically. Now, in some areas they were quite irreverent, but their brand allows them to do that. They got on with showing that they were working really hard to fix the problem, that they took it seriously, but they did have a little bit of fun on the way, and they showed that they were human beings, which is really important. When something's wrong, people don't want to talk to a robot, they want to know that people care.
Thanks for stealing the best example. That's great. Now, that is a very good example. A couple of years ago as well, you may remember the Domino's Pizza YouTube video where a couple of people put on there, a couple of employees showed themselves making the pizza and putting all kinds of things into that pizza, which really is stomach turning, and I won't go over here, but did make you, that could put you off Domino's pizzas for life. And initially the company were slow to respond to that, but they did then go onto YouTube the chief executive went onto YouTube to talk about it and talk about the actions that they've taken and to try and reassure customers. So they ended up handling that pretty well, but they were slow initially. Okay, thank you. Now what we're going to do is start this scenario. This, as a brief introduction, this is how it'll work. We've created a situation, a developing situation that's going to happen to a hotel. And as this develops, we'll get different pieces of information, and you'll see a Twitter stream of comments that are appearing on Twitter at the time. And we'll ask our panel and also get your input on how you should respond and what should be the right way to deal with some of the comments coming up online. So, this is the scenario. I'll talk you through it for those people who can't maybe see it. You're in charge of a hotel called Hotel OK. And you're managing their Twitter account. Now they're a chain of 25 seaside holiday hotels, which are very popular with families. It's Saturday lunchtime, and you receive an urgent call about food poisoning at one of the hotels. So this is where you're at this stage. And this is the information you have as the social media person. So this is what you've received from your own contacts. There's 2 guests at the moment who've contacted with vomiting and nausea.
there's a hotel, the hotel doctor has come and they suspect it's food poisoning, so they've called an ambulance. Now, you've launched an investigation internally, but obviously this is just information that you have. And just to complicate things, there's a famous rap singer called 50 Pence who's staying at your hotel, although he's all right at the moment. Now, I'll give you a minute just to look at the Twitter feed that appears. Can everybody see that? Okay, so looking at that, this is what's appeared in your timeline as you've switched on your Twitter feed and you've seen what's being mentioned. Sarah, if I can start with you. Or maybe it won't be you. There we are. I hope no one's late for boarding. Sarah, just starting off at the scenario with the information you have at the moment. A simple question, does anything need to be done at the moment?
Publicly, at the moment, I would say no. If you look at the Twitter feed, the instances mentioning the possible food poisoning are quite recent, so you've got time to think and plan. At this stage, you should be working internally on what do we need to do next. So plan, make sure you have spokespeople available who can be fully briefed on the situation. You should be gathering facts, probably preparing Q&As on all the possible questions that you could be asked on this area, but you need to be fact-checking at this stage. I think one of the key things with social media is don't rush into trying to respond if you're not yet clear on the facts. This is all very new, very recent. Do your research.
Okay, and
yeah, and also we've got a couple of people who are ill, haven't we, or saying that they're ill and have seen ambulances. In a big hotel, that, you know, it's not yet coming into a crisis. I think you're monitoring the situation, doing stuff behind the scenes. You could go offline to address one of them, send them a direct message or to send them an offline message to see, try and find out exactly what the situation is. But I don't think that you, as Sarah says, that you shouldn't be panicking and bombing out a load of tweets at this stage.
Okay, and Jeremy, wearing your journalist's hat, you're sitting on Twitter just passing away a Saturday afternoon, and you suddenly see these things appearing, and your eyes light up, and you think, oh, possible story.
Yeah.
What would you be looking at now?
Well, what you're looking for in a story, as you are from any source, a journalist is looking for what we call the who, where, why, what, when, basically. What is the story? What is the detail of it? Now, obviously, you're not going to get all that in a tweet, but if you see a few people who are starting to put up the same things, then I would contact them and say, look, can we have a chat? What do you know? Build up information from 2 or 3 sources, and when the story starts to build, then I'd go back to the company for comment, and you've starting to get a story with a bit of grounding by that stage.
Okay. Now, I'll just throw, does anyone else have a comment that they would make, and anything that they would do at this stage? Or a question? Yeah. No, we'll pass the mic. So.
Yeah, I think that just responding to them straight away, and I know you said you've got a bit of time, but I think if you can do it, even if it's just a minute or two, you don't actually have to say anything specific, but just put a public tweet out there saying, you know, direct message us your email and we'll talk. You know, so I would always have something just to acknowledge that you've seen it, even if it is only 5 minutes, because people have 234 followers, so that's going to be on their screen for what, 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So something so that people know you've done it, and also reply to one of the 67 direct messages you haven't looked at, because they could be about it.
Yes, quite. Thank you.
That is a fair point, but try and take it offline if you can, just to see what it is. You don't know at this stage whether it really is something serious you're investigating behind the scenes, but I think that's a fair point.
I'll take one more question from the lady here, and then we'll move to the next scene.
It's not a question, it's a comment. I'm Angela Lansbury, I specialise in romance. I've seen this question, wonder what his room is like. I'd immediately say, what's the honeymoon suite like? Let's show a picture of a bedroom and get him saying why he chose the hotel.
Well, which one's this?
You've got 50 pence is staying in my hotel.
Yes.
Wonder what his room is like.
Yes.
So I'd go and find the room. And
Well, we could-
or a similar room.
Yes. I think it's a very good point at the moment, and I think we'll touch on this, is to say how much we make positive statements at the time of a crisis, and when the right time is to do it, and whether we're at a point where we should or shouldn't do it at this stage.
Yeah, I'd also like to know if the hotel is paying for the ambulance.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the next scene. Okay, this is a good time for you to read the next page. So 2 hours have moved on now, and we've obviously the incident has escalated. We've got more people who are unwell, and to top it all, sod's law, 50 pence is ill as well. So we've now got more media presence, and also we have another slight complication in that you learn, and again this is important, you know this at the moment, but the media don't, that there was a failed inspection in the kitchen. This is what's now appearing on the Twitter stream, and there's a couple of things to bear in mind. One is the fact that in that first stream at 1 p.m, the different tweets were about 15 minutes apart. Now you can see that they're much closer together. They're coming within a minute of each other. So people are starting to tweet about your hotel a lot. So things have escalated. So looking at this now, Jeremy, if I can start with you. Knowing what's out there in the public now, how should the hotel be communicating with the public?
Well, the game has changed because, as you say, more people are ill, and you've got local and national media there. What you need to do is be communicating on all fronts. You need to be visible in the hotel, whether it's a general manager or somebody senior from the hotel, and you also need to be putting out information on Twitter. It may be that there's new information about the restaurant itself may be shut. Whatever information you have, you could link it to some Q&As that people might have about the hotel, giving some information about the latest situation. I think that with 50 pence, you've got to be very careful to treat all customers the same officially. Now, behind the scenes, you might be going to his agent and seeing what the situation is, but as far as you're concerned, all customers are very important to you. Be very careful about accepting the blame, because it may not be your fault. It's something that you're investigating at this stage, and you can give more information later on. As far as the kitchen inspection is concerned, in a crisis, you don't want to wash your dirty linen in public, so you will not volunteer that the kitchen recently failed an inspection. Kitchens often fail inspections, and what happens is they correct anything that is wrong, and then they get a seal of approval. So it may not be as dramatic as it sounds, but if the press find out about that, then you have to deal with it. But you wouldn't volunteer that information at this stage, but you do have to be communicating through Twitter and through traditional methods during this situation.
Okay. Now, I mean, Sarah, looking at how it used to be done in the pre-social media days, in this sort of situation, you would probably draft a press release and you'd update that when you have further information. Is the press release dead now that we have Twitter, or is there some way to combine the new technology with the old methods?
Good question. I don't think the press release or the statement is dead at all. You will have, as well as this going on, you will have media as part of this scenario. We've mentioned regional and national media are there on the scene. You need to have an update to give them. Social media, by something like Twitter, the space involved probably means you can't get all the information there, but you can link to where you are posting that statement, maybe on your website, and it's important to have a message of kind of reassurance that you care as well within that. Your tweets mustn't just be facts, here's the statement. You need to demonstrate that you have put processes in place to help. So, for example, the hotel has a doctor. That doctor is available for guests, anyone who has concerns, to come and talk to, things like that.
And if people are tweeting maybe very specific, either people are tweeting that they've suddenly got ill, how would you deal with individuals who are making further tweets that way?
On a very individual basis, I think what we're seeing here is the volume is getting high, so it's going to be quite hard to respond to everybody. I'd suggest maybe working with a professional, a healthcare professional, to have some frequently asked questions on conditions, what to do next, should you be talking to your GP, for example. Put those on your website or somewhere that you can link to and people can go to, and then you'll find a lot of the questions that you're getting are likely to be quite similar in nature, and you can post people to this information, which is going to save you time, which in a situation like this, if it's gathering speed very quickly, is quite important.
Okay, I'll take one question from the floor if someone has anything that they would do differently or something that they'd ask at this point. Yes, the lady there, please.
Yeah, I was just wondering, would you also think about doing something internally with employees to make sure that they don't start saying, yeah, actually, I just saw the ambulance, and because they are working at the hotel, people give that more kudos?
I think that's a great point. That comes back to having the right kind of processes in place with how you handle social media as a business and with your teams. You would want to have guidelines that say, in the event of certain instances, or these are topics that we would encourage employees not to talk about or to talk about, and ask people to seek advice from a communications, a marketing, a crisis management team when something goes wrong on what they should or shouldn't be tweeting about. Again, one of the big challenges with social media is controlling information, and people in marketing jobs like to be able to control, and this changes everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just carrying on that point, I mean, it's very important that really, before anything like this happens, you know who your guys are who are going to speak to the press, and you know who's doing the tweeting. Otherwise, if it's a free-for-all, then it doesn't matter what your crisis training is in, what your crisis planning is in place. That will go out of the window because there'll be random people saying things that can be damaging to your brand.
And this raises one more point, and that's the fact that employees have their own Twitter accounts, and we tend to know who people work for. If we follow somebody regularly, even if they're not an official representative of a hotel, we may be aware of who they work for, and we'll look to see what they're saying. So how do we control that?
Well, it is difficult to control, but I think you have to have a company policy in place. You'll often see a marketing director or a communications director saying, this is my personal Twitter account, it's got nothing, the views are my own, not to do with the company. As far as a journalist is concerned, that's irrelevant. I mean, if you're the marketing director and you've said something, that will be used, or whoever you are, those comments can be used. You might even say in your report that the so-and-so stressed that it was their own personal view, but even if it's your own personal view, that your hotel that you're the marketing director of has done a shambolic job or has restaurants that are dirty, then you've killed yourself and your company by definition. So that is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. So you really have to have, you can't control everything everybody's going to say and tweet. You say everybody has personal accounts, but you have to have company guidelines in place, definitely.
Okay, let's move on to the next scene. Things have moved on. It's now 6 p.m., so 3 hours later. So one elderly gentleman has died, and that's been across the national TV. Thankfully, our rap singer is in a stable condition, and no one else has been taken ill for the last hour. However, we now have a local eyewitness little celebrity who's appearing online and getting his face everywhere, saying, making quotes about what's going on at the hotel. So this is the Twitter stream as it looks. And for those not familiar with Twitter, you'll probably look online and see hundreds or thousands. This is a mere snapshot that fits on the screen. And you can see these are now coming very, very close together. Though, if you look on the right-hand side of the screen, the trending topics, they are the most commonly used phrases on Twitter at that particular instant in time. And you can suddenly see now that there's a couple there relating to the hotel, which what that's saying is that this incident is major news online and people are talking about it. And not only are they talking about it, but there's this hashtag, and this is what people are using to search by. And they haven't just taken the name, they've misused the name and called it Hotel Not Okay. So, Sarah, you've got the microphone, so if I can start with you. Let's talk about hashtags. If anybody can set up a hashtag for any event, and in this case, this hashtag has obviously got negative implications to the company. What would you do about that? Would you use that hashtag? If not, would you use a hashtag of your own to communicate with guests?
In this instance, because the hashtag is negative, I wouldn't use it, no. I think would also urge a general kind of point of caution in hashtags. They're often used for promoting things, marketing, highlighting information. When something is going wrong, you need to make sure that you're not looking like you're trying to market through this situation. You need to show that you are dealing with the situation. You're putting the people first, not the marketing first. So in this instance, I wouldn't use the hashtag. If you are, when something is trending, you're the official company essentially that's being affected by this instance, people will be looking at your Twitter feed. You don't need to hashtag it and draw more attention to it.
Okay. Jeremy, obviously one of the key things that's happened here is that somebody has died now, which takes things potentially to a whole new level. How does that respond? How does that change how you'd respond?
I think you have to express sympathy in a genuine way. I mean, often you see people reading parrot fashion some bit of paper that says how deeply sorry they are. I think online and offline, you have got to appear genuine, and it's particularly important that you do that in traditional media as well. And I think that something Sarah touched on earlier, you have to stress that you're having an independent inquiry. So it doesn't look as though you are looking at yourself and, by implication, possibly covering up anything that's wrong. So you are not accepting blame at this stage, because we don't know what the situation is. The person may have died coincidentally, it may not be related, but you're expressing your sympathy in a genuine way, and you're conducting a full independent inquiry. And you're also updating any information that that there may be on the state of the hotel in terms of what restaurants are open, and any other information that you want to give people.
Okay. And we've got this tweet here from Davey, who is this mini celebrity, and he's put, "Oh my God, I'm in shock, there's a dead body being carried through the lobby." Now, I know people on Twitter, this will be retweeted hundreds if not thousands of times, these sensationalist statements. What, do you ignore it, or is there any way that you interact with this?
Yeah, I think Davey will be a journalist's dream. He's got some great sound bites. Davey needs to be treated like a journalist. He's got a huge influential following. He's updating on the situation very regularly. He should be provided with the facts, the statements on the situation as you would to a media outlet, because he is communicating for you. He's obviously also in this instance here got quite an ego. He's loving being involved in the situation, and maybe suggest a phone call from somebody quite senior at the hotel to call and say, "I'd love to talk to you, update you on the facts of what is happening. If you have any questions, please come directly to me. We're very happy to talk to you," but assume that Davey is going to share all of that publicly.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely right. Whatever us self-important, traditionally trained journalists think, Davey is in effect a journalist. He's got 500,000 followers, which is more than many, many journalists on various publications. You have to treat him seriously, try offline to engage with him and convince him that you are dealing with the situation in a proper way, and that you care about what's happened.
Okay, I'm going to go straight to the fourth one, and I'll give the audience a chance to kick us off on this last point. We've now moved on to the next day, so the dust has settled, but we can see now that the hotel has suddenly heard that there could be somebody claiming sabotage or responsibility for food poisoning, although again the media doesn't know this, so this is your information. And potentially it's the orange juice that may be the cause of this. Everyone who was ill had some of the orange juice. The hotel restaurant is given a clean bill of health, but Davey is still on the attack. And this is what we see on Twitter. So the bad news is people are still talking about this. Only Justin Bieber is being more talked about, which is a disaster in more ways than one. So these are the things now being said. And you can see now people are referring to TripAdvisor, people are talking about the things they've seen and witnessed in the hotel. And Davey is going on about Agatha Christie novels. So you've got a lot of people giving very different, uncontrolled messages. Just throwing this out, Where do people feel they should? What would you do now in this situation as a company? Yep. We'll pass you a mic. Go ahead,
I think the most important thing that you can do, and bearing in mind there's going to be loads and loads of these tweets are going to keep coming, TripAdvisor is the one that won't go away, and I think you need to have the general manager of the hotel or managing director of the chain go onto that, personally respond to every single negative comment, and make it clear that it's personal. You know, mention something they've referred to, not a stop reply. You know, that's going to be the most important thing. People staying at hotels, that as much as Twitter is going to be fantastic for them, well, not fantastic, TripAdvisor is still going to be the one that people are basing a lot of their stay on. So I think that has to be the one that you treat the most urgently.
Okay, thank you. I mean, Jeremy, just moving on from that point, as Justin said, TripAdvisor is Twitter disappears from your stream in a few minutes, but TripAdvisor is there forever. So what is the danger that poses to the?
Well, I think this guy's absolutely spot on. It poses a massive danger, and you have to deal with individual complaints and queries. I mean, when you go onto TripAdvisor and you see, as we all do, a particular hotel, it's got some great comments and then it's got a few negative ones, and sometimes you'll see the general manager or somebody there has gone on and addressed it and said, look, I'm sorry to hear that you felt that way, blah, blah, blah. You can't help but be impressed by that, really. It may not totally change your view. If a lot of people are moaning about something, you might slightly put you off. But you can't help but be impressed by somebody who's taken the time out to say, look, we do care, we are addressing it. So I think that's absolutely vital.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to start to wrap up because I'm aware that time is marching on. But Sarah, at some point, the hotel will return to normal activity and the Twitter storm will die down. When is it okay to start writing the normal promotional or even neutral material back to customers?
In this case, or every case has to be handled quite individually, you do need to leave it some time before you start pushing out promotional and particularly quite sales messages. You want to make sure, first of all, that everybody involved in this situation is okay. If you've made changes, for example, we've talked about bringing in independent health advisors, state what those changes are that you're going to make and follow them up. Continue to keep people updated that you're taking this seriously and you're moving things forward. That might address some of the TripAdvisor challenges as well to show that you're taking it seriously. And then very gradually move into being a little bit more business as usual, but don't start with overly sales messages. If you've had an incident of what was suspected food poisoning, you're going to want to steer clear of your food and drink offerings, other things, and don't go straight out with value, really kind of dirt cheap offers, because that will be jumped on by media as the fact that you desperately need to fill your hotel. So take it slow, don't jump in. I think it's one of the main things with social media. Yes, it moves quickly, but still be considered. Okay, thank you. So no free orange juice with every meal. I want to start, just wrapping this up. I mean, one thing we've talked about is, I think all of us and the audience have stressed just some of the demands on the person managing the Twitter stream. What would you look for in somebody who was managing a Twitter account? If you were running a hotel, what would you look for when you were appointing somebody to run the Twitter stream, and what training would they need to be given? Sarah? I'd want somebody with some really good common sense, somebody that's not going to just jump straight in, try and answer everything, overly speculate, somebody that's going to know when to ask for help. Depending on the nature of the Twitter feed, some businesses do a great job of having a separate customer services feed. If you do that, it needs to be somebody with that kind of background. If it's more general sort of brand and awareness, then a marketing PR background would be great. A lot of people now think social media is just for young people. I don't think that's true. It could be anybody of any age.
Yeah, absolutely, and probably not just one person either, because again, when they're on holiday or they're in the pub on a Saturday night, you can guarantee that that's when something will happen. And I think also that they should be responsible to somebody senior within the company, so that somebody, even at board level, is responsible overseeing this. I mean, you don't want to just give it to somebody who may be new, fresh at the company. Yeah, I mean, you see sometimes companies giving it to a temporary person who is disengaged from the company just because they happen to be young and very good on technology. You have to show that you take it seriously and that it's just as an important a method of communication as your traditional methods. So that person needs the authority to be able to respond to questions. Yeah, and they need to be reporting into somebody senior so that it's the whole process is taken very seriously, not somebody who's just sort of adjacent to the whole planning of how a crisis is handled.
Okay, Jeremy, just wearing your old geezer's hat. I mean, we've talked about how much the social media has changed the way we respond to crises, but there are certain rules that apply to crisis management that surely still apply, even with all the new technology.
Well, I think basically the same rules apply throughout in terms of you handling a crisis, how you have to be on top of it, how you have to have beforehand a plan in place, you have to have certain people responding, there are things that you need to say at different times. So I would say that handling a crisis is very similar now than it was a few years ago. It's now more immediate and there are other channels that you have to address, but the way you handle a crisis is not changed dramatically over the last few years.
I just add to that, be very human. I think in sort of traditional ways of dealing with crisis, it's written statements, they can be quite corporate. Social media is about people having conversations and you need to kind of work in that environment as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Please give a round of applause to Jeremy and Sarah. And I hope you found this, I hope when you go away and if you are ever faced with a crisis that you'll remember some of their wise words. Thank you.